Good morning, comrades. Hope everyone's doing well. We're here to talk about the next game in the Shining Force Gaiden trilogy and the fourth game in the chronological order of the Shining Force games, which is another Game Gear game. This one is not remastered, if you will, over into 16-bit on the Sega CD, which is unfortunate. It's still kind of fun and quirky to play like an old Game Gear game, so I don't mind that one bit. But this is Shining Force Gaiden Final Conflict on the Game Gear. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good shit, and let's get started. So this one focuses back on Max. Now Max, if you don't remember, is the main character of the first game. I called him Comrade, but you know, their canon name is Max. So Max, we get an intro like sprawl that describes how Max is chasing after Marsharla, who's that crazy puppet woman from the first game, I'm pretty sure. That same name that we like killed, but I guess we didn't kill. But she's over here wherever Max and Adam ended up, just causing a lot of fucking problems. Especially at the Parmashia Temple, which, if I remember correctly, plays a large role in the beginning of the Shining Force 2 game, which I think Shining Force 2 is the next one chronologically, so that would make sense. This is like this is like a connecting one from 1 to 2 instead of just being like, here's a different game with nothing connecting them. Granted, I'm pretty sure Shining Force 2 came out way before Final Conflict did, but there you go. So the game starts after we get that kind of crawl that Max headed off to fight Marsharla, and he's been gone for a little bit. We get Adam being worked on by the elder of this village and being told like, and you know, and Adam's got like, he identifies that he has self-repairing functions as well, but that he might not be able to ever fight again. Like he's been rusted out, and kind of the damage from the previous battles in the Shining Force 1 games have like caused enough of an issue where like he might just be done fighting. It's at this point we meet the new kids. So they're spunky, they're full of energy, they're definitely, they look a lot more like kids in a lot of these other games, but they kind of look like more teenagers. These guys look like they're middle school or younger. So we start off with, I can't remember all their names, so we start off with Bone Arrow Lady, Monk as a healer. You know, it's kind of traditional stuff at this point. The Knight Centaur, the Dwarf Fight Warrior, and the Mage. Mage is Hal. I just remember his name. But I don't think he's an elf, but he's got glasses, which is adorbs. Anyway, they're talking about how they want to go find Max, and that it's been a while, and then Adam's like, okay, I'll come with you, but I can't fight. And then someone mentions like Ian, who's now Comrade, because he's going to be the main character of this one. But we head off to the Temple of Parmashia without Ian and Natasha. It's not Natasha in this one. It's Cynthia. Cynthia in this one. That's like the main character and his love interest. Because, you know, Ian's got something to say, or Comrade's got something to say to the elder. So they stay behind, but Adam takes the rest of the kids, and they head off. And we get a fun scene where they're like, hey, where's Monk Guy? And it's like, oh, he's always sleeping in, that fool. And then we get a lot of prattle, and a lot of the characters talking and interacting with each other. And I feel like we got more interaction in this game than we have in any of the previous games. So they're two Gaiden games and the first Shining Force, which is fun. And once we get to the temple, we see a guy, we see this lady talking, we see the guy. We see a guy talking about this ancient relic, and what are we going to do to start up this ancient relic, and like, maybe we should destroy it, and something. I'm pretty sure this is like the caravan. I think it's in the second game. It kind of moves around and stuff, if I remember correctly. I don't know if we get access to it in this game, but he's talking about it. And then he's got some monsters with him, and then we fight. Once the fight's over, we beat up everybody. We find out this guy's like Raubin or something. We find out that he's like a bandit master or whatever, and that Marsharla like kidnapped his men. And he's kind of forced to work for her, otherwise she's going to kill them all. And then he has to come get this artifact or else. Anyway, so now that we've captured Raubin, we take him back to the Hassan, which is the town we're all from. And it's been attacked. And Marsharla has the elder locked in his house, and she's doing problems. And they're like, oh, these kids are back. Let's fight them. And so we do. But before we fight them, we see Comrade and Cynthia escape. And so at this point, Comrade, who's, again, the silent protagonist, who can't remember his past, who's mysterious and has mysterious connections to things that are going on. So literally the same character we've played every game, even though every game so far has had a totally different main character. They're all got the same like ridiculous backstory. So he joins up, and now he's the main character, and so he's the one who's got Egress and all that stuff. And again, it's just reconfirmed at this point that this Mashallah lady is like the crazy puppet lady from before. So she definitely survived somehow, and is now causing issues. Which maybe that's why Max is like, hold up, she's back. I gotta fuck her up. So we kick our way through here, but before we can rescue the Elder, we meet Lynx, who's one of the lieutenants of Mashallah, and they go back and forth, and then they teleport the fuck out of there with the Elder, and so now we gotta chase them. On our way to the thief's hideout, where Mashallah went, we get... Oh, no, so we head off to the thief's hideout, and we get an open world map. Once we beat through there, Cynthia convinces us to let her join so she can be with her boyfriend, Comrade. And she is a healer, so that's nice. So now we have now we have 2 healers. We're starting to get like a nice little force going. And as in previous games, I'm leveling up a bit. I got to like level 5 in the first... Not the first level, because I didn't have Egress and I didn't have the main character. So I'm getting everyone up to 5, and then every level I'm like pushing another level or so. So I think here I got to level like 6. Some guys were 7 and going forth. Next we get to a bridge that crosses over to the area where the thief's hideout is, and we get attacked by a Kraken. Oh no! And we don't fight the Kraken or Kraken. What we do fight is all its like arms and then some bats. Oh, fucking bats. I hate bats so much. You miss them a lot and they put your guys to sleep. They are assholes. They're the worst. The tentacles are all right. Couple of the tentacles will do like a long distance attack, which is kind of annoying because the bridge is all broken up by the Kraken. And so there's parts where only one character can go through at a time. And then if it gets attacked by a Kraken from a long distance and it's like a melee fighter, you just have to like mosey on out and get someone else to come along and take care of it. When we get to the end of the bridge, though, one of Raban's, the thief's, men shows up and uses some sort of foul-smelling item to drive the Kraken off, which is funny because it's like a throwback to like Dragon Quest. I don't know where this like the original idea came from, but in Dragon Quest games, there's an item you can use that makes it so enemies can't find you, and it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's essentially like a foul, pungent thing that makes monsters be like, gross, I don't want to do that. So here it is again in a game made by Sega, but much later. So, there's definitely going to be some influence from that, I would say. So when we get to the hideout for Raban, we see that Mashallah is trying to convince his men that he abandoned them and that they should join him. But then Raban shows up and is like, fuck you, I didn't do that. And then she blasts him, and then she's like, I'm going to spark 3 of these guys. And so she does and kills them. And so he's super mad. And so then Adam yells at her, and then she summons some monsters, and her and Lynx like piece the fuck out, trying to go find Max. We beat them up and save like a couple of the thieves. Pretty much just one, who's the guy who saved us from the Kraken. Raban joins us, and his second-hand man is like, I want to come too. And I'm like, yeah, bring it. And then the thief guy is like, no, you stay here and guard the base. And he's like, all right, boss, I'll do it. I'll miss you guys. And they have like a tearful farewell as we head out. They mention, Mashallah mentions during this part that they need to seal off Volcanon's power, and then Raban mentions that he's like the spirit of the island or something like that. So now we got Raban. He's a thief character, which you've never had before in Shining Force up to this point, chronologically speaking. But he starts off with a throwing dagger, so he can also do like right next to him, but also a square away. So that's nice. That makes him very useful. So now we have, especially because we got a power lance or whatever for our knight. So now we're back to having more long distance characters, which is great. As we arrive to like this waterfall looking area, Mashallah seals off Volcanon's powers and then nopes out again to another island after knocking out some bird knights. We fight our way, kill the mage at the top, and then Volcanon tells us, hey, we need to go to Grand's Isle, and that's where Max is, and that we need to fight the Devil Army, and we can go north to be there. And we have to go back and forth with that for a little bit. Right as we're about to head out, Kiddo, who's one of the birdmen that got defeated before, is like, hey, I know I'm not like the best, but I can fly, which is awesome. Volcanon, can I go with them? And Volcanon's like, you bet. And I'm like, cool, Birdman, excellent. This is like, we're like cruising through this game. So he opens up like a cave passage that goes north, which is where we need to go. And that's the end of Chapter 1. chapter 2 starts, and we're in Mashalah's like evil chamber with her lieutenants. So there's Lynx, then there's Aiko, and then there's what's his name? Magus. Okay, so Mashala's talking to him about everything they got to do. They got to take care of Max. They got to take care of Comrade and his party. Someone mentioned something about Comrade being related to somebody or something, or the brother of somebody. Again, it's another brother trope. The guy who can't remember his past mysteriously and can't talk. But Lynx is sent to track. Excuse me. Lynx is sent to track Max. And then Aiko is kind of like the informant, so he's talking about all the information. And so then Magus gets sent to follow up with Comrade. He's already set up a trap in Pascalone, which is a town somewhere that we're headed to. But they've lost track of us, so they set up a trap in like this biggest town on the way, and he's going to go kind of check it out. And then we talk about the Elder, and someone's like, why don't you just kill that guy? And it's like, no, he has information about the ancient relic, and he's going to help us out. We just got to like torture him some more or something. Plus, it's Comrade's the son of that man, quote unquote. And that the Elder has something to do with that as well, so they don't want to kill him yet. And everyone's like, okay, and everyone separates to go do their business. Back with Comrade, we're in the cave. Kiddo mentions for the first time that, hey, flying around in this cave is ridiculous because I have like no space to fly. And I'm like, thank you, Sega Team. I've been saying this for at least the last 2 games, where it's like, why do you have all these flying guys in a cave guarding? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they're losing their movability. They lose their mobility, which is like half the reason you have them, right? Because they're not as strong as like other characters or whatever, but it is what it is. So I appreciate Sonic Team, who's the team that makes this game for Sega, to adding that in, because it just cracked me up. Or maybe it's the translators, because I don't think this game ever got an official translation. Anyway, so then the monk guy runs ahead and yells, which of course lets the bad guys know that we're here, and then they do something, and parts of the cave start sinking and crashing. So instead of having like a straightforward path to get to the bad guys, we have to like walk around these like broken pillars and stuff. Still not too hard. We just kind of crush our way through, beat the shit out of everybody, and then Adam's like, we gotta hurry before they find out we're coming. We roll up on Magus. He's going on fighting on. Well, we don't roll up yet. We go to Magus while he's fighting the Pakalon forces. And it seems like he's losing, so he pulls his forces back, and he summons a rock in the river, which causes a flood, knocking out all the forces outside of the city/fortress, because it's got a giant wall and a giant door, disallowing the army of Magus to get on in. That doesn't deter them, though. They start bashing on the door. This is about the time Adam and Comrade come rolling up. And so when we show up, we interrupt their celebration and fuck them over. And so at this point, Magus is kind of in trouble. Lynx shows up, and he's like, hey, what the fuck's going on, man? Why can't you get this shit done? And in my head, I'm like, aren't you supposed to be tracking down Max, asshole? Like, leave this poor incompetent dickweed alone. Lynx is a complex character, it seems. So he's like, oh yeah, I'll get him next time. Just help me get out of here. And so Lynx teleports the 2 of them out of there. And then we meet up with Bird Woman and another knight, a female knight centaur. It's like Sylvie and I think Julia are the 2. All right. And they're like, oh, thanks for saving the city. Julia actually came from Bedeau, which is where we came from, and she was sent by Volcanon. When we got Kiddo, that battle where they got defeated, Kiddo and Julia was the other night. There were 2 birdmen, or 2 bird people. And so so Julia survived as well from that battle, and she traveled northward, and she explains in like not excruciating, but like more detail than I would imagine a game of this era would really get into it, that she went she was ahead of us, like barely, so she barely avoided like the cave collapse, and then she got here to help the forces that were trying to fend off the devil army led by Magus. All right, so then we skip over to Magus, and he's got 2 of his guards holding on to Eric, I think is his name, who's like a dragon knight of some sort. He looks like a dragon. He's wearing like a knight stuff. And he's talking about how this is all your fault, and you're the reason why we weren't able to conquer Pakalon. And then Link shows up and says, oh, you're doing that thing where you're doing that pathetic thing where you blame your subordinates for your failures. And Magus is like, no, it's truly his fault. Why did you even join this force in the first place? You didn't help at all. And then Eric's like, I joined so I could get closer to Mashala so that I could... He doesn't say this, but it's implied with more dialogue later. He says, to get closer to Mashala, and then Magus is like, traitor! And then they have like a conversation with Lynx and him about... and Lynx even comes forward and says, there's no way you'll get to Mashala, and if you can't even beat me, there's no way you'd be able to defeat her. And I'm like, oh, so there must have been like there was some more explanation that was not translated or just not written well. Okay, so he wants to destroy Mashallah, so we joined the Devil armies to get closer so we could destroy her, which clearly means he's going to join the Shining Force at some point. Okay, so Lynx challenges him to a one-on-one duel, which they do, and they're pretty evenly matched. There's like a point where they're both like gasping for air, and then Magus is like, "Go get him! Now's the time!" And which is funny because it's like, well, you already had him, so is he really that tough? I don't understand. Maybe he didn't put up a fight before. So his like dwarf minions, the dark dwarf minions go, or are they orcs? I think they might be orcs. It's hard to tell with like the Game Gear sprites. Anyway, so his cronies go up to grab him, and then he's like, "Aha! I'm gonna escape now!" And he runs off, and then the cronies run after him, and then Linkson walks up to Magus and is like, "Well, it's too bad he's our enemy because he's very good. Also, you need to appreciate the theory craft of fair fights, Magus, and stop being an asshole." And Magus is like, "Man, whatever, fair fights." At that point, you guys roll up, and Julia has been scouting ahead. She's seen this whole like nonsense going on. It seems like later, like it happens immediately afterwards on the same map because Game Gear. But it seems to have taken place a slightly bit later because we roll up with Silva and Adam, and we're like, "Oh, we sent our scout ahead, here she comes." And then Julia comes back and she's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of erratic movement. It seems like they're looking for someone." And I've heard the name Eric multiple times. And then we just watch the goons like just wander around on the map for a little bit. Just excellent storytelling, I must say. And I don't mean that facetiously at all. Like I'm like, oh, that's cool. They have like a whole little cutscene here, sort of using like Game Gear, the power of the Game Gear. Anyway, so at this point we're like, all right, like charge ahead, and Magus is like, "Oh, stop those assholes!" And so we fight our way through this world map and just beat the shit out of everybody and gain more levels. Everyone's up to like level 11 or 12. I think the guide I'm using for this isn't as like specific about promoting people and whatnot, but I think I'll probably just do the same thing I did with the last two Gaiden games. In that, I will just kind of wait until I get to about level 15 and promote the melee / non-magic users, and then the magic users I'll push a little harder up to like. That's the thing. I might just promote everybody at like level 15, to be completely honest. Like these games are not hard, and I feel like by making the magic users like wait so long, and the healers in this are just not healing at the same capacity as like the prior Gaiden games. Like my two healers are Luke the monk and Cynthia the priest, and they both have like 12 MP. Like they have like no MP, and they're both like at level with everyone else. They're like a level 12, and it's like. Previously, like the vicars, at least, like the monks would have low MP, but then they'd punch real hard, and Luke really doesn't punch that hard either. He does all right. He's fine. But then the vicar or the priest lady, she has like no mana, and so like I can heal like. Because healing takes 3, so I can heal 4 times a match, and I do that, but that's 40 experience points, so it's like killing one guy. So it's just it's easier. It's like more beneficial for me to just like wander up and kill guys who have like, and she's doing like 5-6 points of damage with like a regular attack. So it's easier just to like go pick people off with her and gain levels than like just power heal. And so I'm still doing the power healing, but it just doesn't. There's not as many opportunities to use it, and the maps are smaller, probably because on the Game Gear, and so you're hitting enemies like real fast, and so there's not like a lot of fucking around time with like just heal. I do get some of that in, and that has helped level a bit, but I just don't know about pushing all the way to level 20. Like I just don't. I don't think there's like a point to it. I know you get like better stats and whatnot. Is like the whole theory craft behind that, but I think this time I'm gonna push to like 15. And then I'm just going to promote everybody like right on that level. I just don't feel like it's necessary to like push any further. Anyway, all that aside, that's kind of my recommendation. If you play through these games, is like trying to push to 20 with your mages makes them like obsolete. Because then by the time they hit level 20 and you promote them and they're back to level 1, everyone's like level 10 promoted. Like they're vastly over leveled, and they just like there's no point to like keeping them up because the magic's not that good. And they don't get more than like 49 experience points anyway anytime they cast a spell, like ever. Like that's like the max. I think I've seen 60 once when I hit like 4 guys with like a magic spell, but that's really not that much, right? So it's like, and then the same issue arises where it's like you just don't have enough MP to like really keep up with all these like spell casting. So now you're just super behind. When if I just promote with everybody else and everyone's kind of gaining levels at the same time. That was what I noticed from the first game. It was like completely unnecessary to do all this extra kind of leveling before you promote. I know if you're trying to like maximize your build or whatever, that's you want to like get that 1 experience point per fight, get that up. But I'm good. So we beat the army of Magus again. He threatens us again. He says, "Come into the village, and I will defeat you there." And then he like giggles and runs off. And then Adam's like, "All right. Well, let's go to the village of Morn and take a little rest poo." In the town of Moan, we Magus and Lynx continue to have their disagreements about how to conduct war, with Lynx being very much about like honor and one-on-one combat or whatever. It reminds us of Elliot from the first game, while Magus is all about the tricking. So Lynx is like whatever and kind of wanders off. Our party then enters Morn, and we get approached by 3 citizens who are like, "Oh hey, just your mere presence here drove off the devil army, so they're not here anymore, so you should come with us and we'll have a celebration." And once we get to like the middle of town or whatever, then we find out that these guys are monsters and this is the trap. And so Magus is like, "Ooh." So we kick the shit out of all them. And then once they're all killed and the city of Moan is free, Eric shows up. Well, and Eric actually comes before to warn us. And if you remember, Eric is the Dragon Knight. And then he introduces himself. He says he's the son of Elliot, speaking of which, from the first game, and that he joined the Devil Army to try to work his way up to get to Mashallah to defeat like the Devil Army, because he didn't like what they did to the kingdom of like Raban from the first game, and how they corrupted the king and got his father killed essentially, which to me is like, I mean, he could have just not been like as honorable as he was and he would have been alive. So that's kind of on him. I don't blame the Devil Army and Dark Soul wholly for that. But then Eric wants to join because he sees that we're gonna do a good job and kick the shit out of the other army. So he joins, and now we get a Dragon Knight. So we get another flying guy, which is great, who uses a sword, another Birdman type character. He then is going to lead us to where it's like the Nazca lines, which is where Mashallah and everybody are at. So then heading to the Nazca lines, Mashallah's there berating Magus for his continuous failures and tells him this is his last chance, and then she leaves. Lynx then offers to help one more time, saying, "I will help you fight these people one-on-one, but I'm not going to do any traps or trickery or whatever." And then Magus is like, "Get the fuck out of here, I don't need any of your help, asshole." And Lynx is like, "All right, you made your pack." Eric then leads. We then roll in with Eric and Adam to the Nazca lines, and as soon as we get there, Magus springs his trap, which is just another battle. These traps are very... It's not even like we're like in the middle and then we're surrounded by enemies. It's like we're just like on one side of the map and he's on the other side of the map. All right, whatever, Magus. You're kind of shit at your job, which is why we're going to defeat you here. So upon kicking the shit out of Magus at the end of this battle, he cries out, "Oh, Lynx, you did bad to me. This is your fault," or some bullshit. No, whatever. Lynx doesn't respond. We then get a visit from a goddess. It's like Michuel or whatever. And she's the goddess of the land where Eric is from, Eric the Dragon guy. She sends us a wizard to help guide us to Grand's Isle. She also lets us know that Max has been defeated and that she's now declaring, and she says something about like Max doesn't have the power of the light anymore, but she declares that us / the new comrade, because every one of these guys is comrade. I think it's supposed to be Ian in this game, that he is the leader of the new Shining Force. And then she gives us a necklace of light, which embeds itself in the main character's chest, it seems. Then the mage lady shows up and they're like, "All right, so time to get to the Grand Isle." And they're like, "How are we going to do that?" It's like, "Oh, we're going to fly. We're standing on it. This Nazca thing is a ship." And so she activates it, and then we hop in and head out. As soon as we land in what I thought was Grand Isle, I don't know, it gets kind of confusing. And I'll explain in a little bit. We get ambushed, and we're like in a misty forest, which is really good, like Game Gear graphics. Like it has like these mists, and the mist like fades away, and then we get attacked. So that's pretty cool. So after clearing all that out, we meet Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton's a master monk, and he was traveling with Max. He wasn't like part of the original Shining Force of the army, but he traveled here with Max. And then when Max got defeated, he was like off looking for a waterfall to train under or whatever. But he's super old, so he doesn't exactly remember where Max was going or what was going on with that. But he does know about the city Ralph, I think is what the name is. And he does mention Aiko. Aiko is from the very beginning of the game. He's another one of Marshallah's lieutenants. So we head to the Raft, something like that, and we get attacked outside the city by Aiku's men, who summon. So this battle's pretty interesting. And it's another like very like, man, this Game Gear stuff is like doing a great job. for being a Game Gear, right? Like a more advanced Game Boy. So we're traveling around this map, and it kind of hooks around this mountain range. And as we get to like the hook, the boss of like the battle is like, well, some of the tentacles. And so then he floods half the map, and then the tentacles come up. And we gotta fight these tentacles. Those tentacles hit like fucking hard, man. They're hitting harder than like a lot of stuff. But we're able to punch our way through, defeat them. And then we go to Roth to rest up, promote, and I'm starting the promotion, like I said before. I promoted everybody around like level 15 at this point. In this game, it was my decision. Especially because I'm getting guys who are like level 5. Like Eric was like level 5 promoted already. Like, oh my gosh, like he's got to start catching up. And after we rest up at Roth, get new weapons, kind of promote a little bit, we go to the fortress. And I think, did I have everybody promoted at this point? No, I think everyone got promoted after the fortress section. So after we leave Roth, we see Echo, and he or she's walking around their fortress being upset. Lynx shows up, and they discuss like the philosophy of Link's whole thing. Link's whole thing being like fair fights, not traps. He doesn't want to, if you choose to fight alone, that's how it should be. If you can't win on your own, then you shouldn't win at all, and you shouldn't use deceit. And they argue about that, but then Lynx is like, all right, whatever, bye. And then Echo blames Lynx again, another one of the other lieutenants, for the problems. Anyway, the battle commences. We push our way through the fortress. And as Echo dies, he taunts about how Max, something about Max and something Max before the battle, and then something else about Max after the battle. But he never really finishes what he was going to say. The Elder does get freed, though, and he comes rolling out of the fortress. He's like, oh, hey, this man with closed eyes rescued him. And then someone's like, the closed eyes, huh? Like they know what's going on. But then the whole fortress starts like shaking in it, and it collapses. And so we have to like run out of there. We then switch over to Mishala, who's standing around in like a desert trying to enslave a bunch of dwarfs. What an asshole. And we come along and rudely interrupt her. So we push through the desert. This desert battle is kind of bullshit because you got these sandworms that pop up periodically. And I wouldn't be so... There's plenty of battles at this point. It's almost like a super common thing for random guys to just like appear. But these dudes like pop out of the ground and cast like a huge spell. Right? And when I say huge spell, it's like... So we have the normal cross, which is like the center square, one up, one down, one left, one right. This is like 2 left, 2 right, 2 up, 2 down, and diagonal. And so these things like pop up out of the ground like as you get close to them, and then they just like bam, and it's like fuck. So I had to restart this battle at one point because I was like, okay, at one point I was getting like 2 sandworms at a time. So then when I came through the second time, I just like hugged one side of the board and just like rolled down. I actually only ran into like 1 sandworm, which was good because then at the end is Mishala, who casts Bolt 2, which is another one of these bullshit spells that hits like a whole bunch of people. But she goes down pretty quick. And the reason why she goes down pretty quick is that it's just a doll. Ha ha, suckers. So Mishala's like, hey, the Elder comes along. He's like, oh, I rescued all the dwarfs while you guys were actually battling the enemies. I unreleased them, so they're good to go. And then Mishala's like, hey, fuck you guys. How'd you like fighting my doll? That wasn't me, you assholes. I'm resurrecting Dark Soul. You're like, oh, Dark Soul, fuck that guy from the first game, damn. And she's like, I'm going to leave you a little present. And she strikes the Elder down from far, and Cynthia comes up, and she's like, no, grandfather. And, well, she goes to strike Adam down, is what I should say, the robot leader. And the Elder at the last second is like, no, Adam, move. And he jumps in the way and takes the battle. He takes the shot. And then at this point, it gets really weird, because someone's like, oh, Dark Soul's being resurrected on Grand's Isle. You need to go to Grand's Isle. And I was like, is this not Grand's Isle? I thought the whole point of flying the Nazca ship was to come to Grand's Isle. Did we just get dropped off somewhere else? Like, the fuck? Like, is this not Grand's? Is Grand's Isle like a country that's not actually an island? Is it just Grand's Isle, but it's like Grand's Isle is a name? Like, I don't even know I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think of like a city in it somewhere that's like called something, but it is not at all. I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know. It's just bizarre. And it's not like, okay, let's get on a ship and travel over there. Let's get back on the Nazca ship and travel over there. It's literally just like, all right, let's go to Grand's Isle. And then we all travel to Grand's Isle. And that's the end of chapter 3. Going into chapter 4. And then it literally starts, and we're like chatting, and we're like, oh, good, we got to get to this town. It's the only town on Grand's Isle. And I'm like, did we travel to a different island? Like, I don't understand. Or it's just like the country of Grand's Isle? Like, what the fuck? Anyway, as soon as we see like the castle city that is like the only city in Grand's Isle, Lynx shows up, and he's like, aha, it is time to fight. It is time to have a fair fight, and we will battle to the death. All right, so after we defeat Lynx here, Raiden gets released. And who's really Raiden? He's a dwarf gladiator guy. He traveled out here with Max, and they were super close. We saw him in the opening cinematic, which I didn't really talk about that much, kind of because I forgot. There's an opening cinematic with Max and Rhydon, and they're trying to fight Michela, and her generals, and this is, like, stuff happens before the beginning of the game. Anyway, so hey, it's that guy. Awesome. So he tells us that they're reviving Dark Soul, as we've kind of figured out by this point. So Michela is trying to revive Dark Soul, and he's trapped in the Tower of Ancients, which is also where the Demon Lord Xeon is at, and also where Max is located. So we head into the city, and we get taken to the king, where we talk to the king of Galam, and he explains to us that they were like under the thumb of the Devil Army, because they came in, they kept fighting, and eventually the king of Galam, they lost. And so then they had to do what they were told, and they destroyed their army. And then when the army left, they didn't have the ability to go into the Tower of the Ancients to do anything about it. And so it's up to us to go and stop them. So before we start the battle, the king gives us the Chaos Breaker, right? Awesome. Which is a sort of light that we can equip and use. So we spend some time equipping new stuff, getting kind of like the final stuff for the final battles of the game. We head out. Michela has another doll that threatens us as we leave, and she casts up. There's like a whole bunch of orbs laying around, and then we can attack the orbs, and they give us a lot of experience, as in they give us a normal 49. But if we just leave them alone, they don't do shit. And this level sucks anyway, so there's really no reason to engage with them, to be completely honest, because it's like everyone's a magic user, and so you got to checkerboard walk through this whole fucking overworld map, which sucks ass, to be completely honest. And then your guys keep getting double teamed anyway, because you have dudes flying in who cast spells, and other dudes casting spells, and you got to some dudes got the big cross, and it's there's nothing you can fucking do, because you're not going to walk 6 spaces apart, because that's retarded. Anyway, because of my flying guys, I'm able to finally fucking muscle my way down all the way. Oh, also there's a patch of grass in the corner, so I go and I search, and I get the samurai character, the traditional hidden samurai character, which at this point I'm nah, fuck it, I got 2 more battles left. I'm not using that shit. Okay, I think it's 3 battles, maybe 4. Anyway, so once we kill Michela's doll, all the orbs disappear, and then someone makes a side comment about how the orbs are what it gives the devil power all its magical power, so now they don't have unlimited magical power, and I was the fuck, they had unlimited magical power? Fuck those guys. Now we're at the tower. As we approach the tower, Michela reveals Max! Only he's wearing the Mask of Darkness. If you remember the Mask of Darkness from Shining Force 1, it's the mask that they used to enslave Kain. Kain is the brother of Max, right, who had to die fighting Dark Soul the first time around. And so I got the mask back on Max, and so he has no ability to control himself. So we roll on up, and we're able to fuck everybody up, and then we're trying to pull the mask off Max, but we're unable to do it. Then old Odd Eyes comes, or Closed Eyes, I think it was Odd Eyes. And he's like, hey, what's up? I'm a devil. Let me help you out. So he just pulls the mask off, and then Max is like, oh, I'm good. And then old Closed Eyes introduces himself. He says, hey, I'm a servant of Xenos, and I hate Dark Soul because, he's inhabiting the space where Xenos is supposed to be. And even though I'm like a devil, the enemy of the enemy is my friend, so we're going to help each other out. And Comrade and Adam have nothing to say on that, so they're like, sure, fuck it, why not? And then he's like, all right, cool. Well, that's all the help you're going to get, so I'll see you later. But he's a fucking liar, because in the immediate next battle, he joins us. So, I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. He's not very good, but we get a 13th member, so we can always he was helpful, because he was able to get a couple more pot shots in against the last boss, so I don't have to refight that battle. But we'll get there. Anyway, so Max wakes up. Also, we find out that this is the guy who released the Eldar earlier. Remember, he said some old Closed Eye guy helped me out of there, so that was him. Max is so great. So yeah, so Max wakes up and he's so grateful they didn't have to suffer the same fate as his brother, and then he joins Shining Force. And I didn't feel like putting him in my party, so I didn't. Because my character could already use fucking the Chaos Breaker, and then Max is a worse hero, and everyone else is leveled up, and I got a nice situation going. So I was like, yeah. So at the top of the tower, Max finally confronts Michela. And this is the last 2 levels. And it's another one of these situations where you fight, and then you fight the final boss. And if you lose, or you aggress out of there, then you got to play through both levels again. So whatever. I didn't have to, which was nice. Because I almost did. Anyway, Michela's putzing around up there. And she's ready to summon Dark Soul. And that... And then she reveals that the main character, Comrade, is actually the son of Kain from the first game, and that Kain spoke to a priestess or prophetess or something, and that he foresaw this whole situation occurring before he had the mask on or something. And so at some point he had a kid, unbeknownst to everyone. and he sent the kid away to like this village so that all this stuff could happen, so that he could like put Dark Soul down for good, because fuck Dark Soul. And then Max is like, oh my gosh, you're my nephew. That's so great. That's why you're here. That's why you can use the fucking Chaos Breaker and all that stuff. That's great. So, and then the Elder, only the Elder knew, I guess, and the Elder was preparing you all this time to do whatever. So Max is all psyched up, and then the battle commences. So we kill her, and then she pulls a Guardaria from Shining Force CD Part Duo, or Gaiden 2, if you will, where she sacrifices herself to bring back Dark Soul. So hopefully she's dead for good at this point. And again, the whole time Odd Eye's here, because he's like, oh, good luck, you guys. I'll see you around. And then immediately, as soon as the battle starts with Michelle, he rolls in. He's like, no, I'm going to help. Fuck you guys. We got this. And he just hits with the sword, has no magic, and his sword attack is somewhat weak. But again, it's a 13th character, so whatever. And then occasionally, when he attacks, he'll use like a laser eye attack instead of a regular sword attack, which does double damage, which is actually super nice, because it goes from like 20 to 40 damage, which no one's really doing 40 damage. So that's pretty good. He only did that once when I saw it, though. Anyway, so then Dark Soul's revitalized, and excuse me, and then he immediately turns into a monster. And the battle is just him. It's a Dark Dragon situation. Only he doesn't summon enemies, which is nice, because it's just like one arm, two arms, and then him. And again, it's got that bullshit thing where it's like only one person can get like super close without flying, and then only one person can get like a square away. So I was able to hit him with like four guys at one point, because I had one flying guy left over from the previous battle. That previous battle like beat the shit out of me, but enough people to like kill. Well, and then trying to kill both his hands, and everyone casts like the big cross. So it's like you can't really checkerboard it out. You got to just get in there and do as much damage as humanly possible, as fast as possible, to destroy these things. So I got the left arm, then the right arm, then I get in there and I just start pounding away with one melee guy at a time, and then one throwaway guy at a time. And thank goodness I'm using both ninjas. And then I have I can't remember which one. I had one of my knights with the throwing spear, the Valkyrie. So I had three guys who could do one step away, and then I had my archer who could do 2 steps away. And so I just kind of plink, 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 plink. This thing has like almost 300 hit points, probably like 250. I think that's what Dark Dragon had. And guys are doing like 20 points of damage. So you got to hit this thing like 13 times, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but he's like 1-shotting or 2-shotting guys. So it's a minute. So my Birdman goes in there, he gets like 1 shot, and then he dies. And then I send in my warrior, he gets a couple shots in before he dies. I got Plink Plink with the ninjas. But again, it's this guy, like he'll attack, or if he uses a big lightning spell or Demon's Breath or whatever, it kind of messes you up. Anyway, it got down to like just the main character and just the healer lady. And but I was able to like go in there and just smack him up a little bit and then win. So thank God. So I didn't have to replay that. And then we learned that the reason Dark Soul was not able to destroy us completely is because Xeno was holding him back, obviously. And so everyone's revitalized and everyone's chilling, and then Odd Eye and us, he's like, all right, well, that was fun, you guys, but I am a devil, so next time we fight, or next time we meet, we'll be enemies. Cool. Well, thanks for your help. Bye. And then he just leaves. And then everyone else is like celebrating and being like, yeah, this is awesome. We did it. We take the Chaos Breaker and head back to King Galem. And then we talk about how, like, all right, so the Xenos is still sealed there. Dark Soul, I guess, is still sealed there or whatever. And so we give him the Chaos Breaker to, like, help seal with, like, the power of light. And then we're going to build a city right by the Tower of Ancients called Grand Seal to, like, because this is the Grand Seal Isle, to, like, Grand Seal the tower up or whatever. But no one wants to be king. And so Thief Bro, he gets his homie, who we left at the very beginning of the game, Nashu, and he's like, you're going to be king. Everyone loves that, right? Everyone's down with him being king. You got here all by yourself. Literally, we came with a whole army and, like, magic and shit, and you just, like, meandered over here by yourself. So you should definitely be king. And I'm like, that's legit logic. Like, how the fuck did you get over here all by yourself? I mean, he's not fighting a devil army every step of the way, but still, it's pretty impressive. I mean, finally, everyone's like, yay. And then Howl, the wizard, is like, I'm going to stay here, too, and do research. While everyone else, like, heads back home, I guess. Which is interesting because it's like a kick forward to Shining Force 2, which is the direct sequel to this. Because in Shining Force 2, at the very beginning of the game, you run into like an old scholar who's been sitting around this area forever studying the ruins and stuff, named Hal. So there you go. Oh, goodness. Let me think what else happens. All right. So then we're back at the original town, and everyone's. Are we back at the original town? Yeah, I think we're somewhere. Everyone's hanging out, and this might just be in the throne room. Actually, now that I remember it. Sorry, I already started playing Shining Force 2 at this point, so I'm trying to recall my notes from like the previous week. Okay, yeah. So anyway, they're doing something. They're all hanging out, and then Cynthia's like, "Man, I really miss Comrade," and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, he'll come back eventually, I'm sure." I don't know. He maybe never does. The only hero out of any of these fucking games that gets like a true happy ending is fucking. Well, I guess Nick became a prince, but I can't even remember what the main character's name's supposed to be in the second game or in the second Gaiden game. But he gets his girlfriend and rides off into the sunset. This is very similarly, only instead of riding off in the sunset with your girl Cynthia, you walk off in the sunset with Adam and your fucking Uncle Max. And where are you guys going? No, I don't know. They're just like, oh, look at that sunset. Isn't it beautiful? Let's head out. The end. Cool story, bros. Anyway, so yeah, that's Shining Force Gaiden 3 or Shining Force Final Conflict for the Game Gear. It was great. It was a great kind of like sequel to the first game. There's like 2 pathway sequels, which is fun, right? Because the Gaiden games are a direct sequel as well, but they focus on Henri and that whole path, and then kind of diverge when we get over to Cyprus and whatnot. But it follows that line. Well, this one, it's like Max disappeared with Adam, and so we get to see what happens there. And this is like directly leads into Shining Force 2, because Shining Force 2 begins like 100 years later. I don't know, sometime later. And there's the Kingdom of Grand Soul and the Kingdom of Gallim, and they're friends, and there's the Tower of the Ancients and all that stuff. I don't know if there's any other relation. That's hasn't come up yet in my playthrough. But it directly follow suit. But yeah, Final Conflict is great. It's for like a Game Gear version of Shining Force, it does everything right. It doesn't have like the town exploration, any of that stuff, which it's on the Game Gear, so whatever. The battles are simple, quick. They got kind of bullshitty there at the end. There was a few battles I was like, the fuck, man, this got like so hard all of a sudden. So I can't even imagine playing on like a harder difficulty. I don't think this one had harder difficulty. Some of them do and some of them don't, so I don't always remember. But as long as you kind of grind out a little bit, and you can always egress, like there's really no fail state with these, which is nice. You can just keep grinding it out. You know, it's very like JRPG style in that regard, even though it's like a tactics strategy game. And then all the characters were fun. This one had a lot more story, it seemed, with like bringing characters and having to make comments and stuff, and Cynthia, and it ties everything in nicely. And it was very cliche, and it was very like Shining Force cliche with like amnesiac main character, and like kind of love interest, and then relation, and then like, oh, it's a secret. Oh, he's actually the true hero all along, and like fucking Dark Souls and all that shit, and yams and whatnot. Like, so it's good stuff. I really enjoyed it. It did a great job. It was super fun, and highly recommend checking it out if you got a Game Gear or you just want to emulate it. Very simple emulation. It's a fucking Game Gear. Just a heads up, I used the Pico emulator for Genesis, Game Gear for all the Sega stuff, and it did not save state. So I had to beat a level. I had to egress or beat and save. The game saved like a normal save as part of like the cartridge system. But if you're trying to save state mid battle, I would not do that. It like fucking ruin the game, like hard freeze and fuck up. So but on that, it was great and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, so go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you all later.